Okay, Thiruvan Saranai, everybody. Can you all say sadhu to start the discussion session, please?
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Panchahi bhikkhave dhammehi samannagato bhikkhu attahitaya cha patipanno hoti parahitaya cha. Katamehi panchahi ida bhikkhave bhikkhu attana cha sila sampanna hoti parancha sila sampadaya samadapeti. Attana cha samadhi sampanno hoti parancha samadhi sampadaya samadapeti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dear noble friends, today is 29th of July 2025. We have completed 1.5 hours of mindful walking and mindful sitting. And usually we take this time to engage in a discussion, a talk, and a Q&A session. So as you all know, we have started discussing Attahita, Parahita, Sutta, or the discourse on the welfare of self and welfare of others. So this is something which appears in the numerical discourses in the books of 5, under section 5 or under section of powers. This particular sutta is appearing. And the meaning of the part I just recited is because possessing 5 qualities, a bhikkhu is practicing both for his own welfare and for the welfare of others. What 5? Number 1, here a bhikkhu is self-accomplished in virtuous behavior and encourages others to become accomplished in virtuous behavior. And then number 2, he is himself accomplished in concentration and encourages others to become accomplished in concentration. So we have discussed quite a bit of the 2 topics. So it's basically becoming virtuous and helping others to become virtuous, and becoming a concentrated person and helping others to become concentrated. So, so far as virtue is concerned, when someone is practicing mindfulness, then only the virtue can be taught. Otherwise, if you don't engage in mindful practice, you cannot teach virtue. What you will do is you will take the virtue as a commandment. And so says, and I am scared, or so will punish, so I will have to just adhere to it, just accept it. But so far as Buddha's teaching is concerned, virtuous behavior is coming as a result of seeing self. And that is what is explained in mindfulness and clear comprehension discourse. When someone is mindful and is having clear comprehension, and when he is aware that he is having clear comprehension, although he is a person who is not virtuous, he has the opportunity to see his own moral shame and moral fear. Once you see your own moral shame and moral fear, you will become a self-restrained person or someone with restrained faculties. So when you have restrained faculties, or at least when you try to restrain faculties because you see yourself, not because someone else says, then you will become a virtuous person. And on that basis, when someone becomes virtuous in that manner, then he knows to tell someone who is not virtuous how to become virtuous. Otherwise, you will be just making other people afraid of the next life or afraid of someone else up in the sky, and he will punish you, and therefore you'll have to be virtuous, is something that everyone will not buy. And especially people who have intelligence, people who think out of the box, will not buy that. So therefore, there are lots and lots of people today who are considered atheist because they don't have a religion, because most of the religions they are exposed to are based on assumptions. There is no real justifications, radical approach, and radical rational explanation for what they are doing. So therefore, to make it short, in Buddhism, the mindfulness support virtue, and therefore you can teach anybody how to become virtuous. It is not necessary for someone to become virtuous and then come to Buddhism. So we have discussed this at length in the first two discourses, or rather first two talks of this discourse. So I'm not going to go into more detail of it. And the second quality that the Buddha is explaining that one should possess is that to be concentrated. So when someone has accomplished concentration, that is for his own benefit. And since he has achieved, he has the ability to tell it to somebody else. So it's for the benefit of others. So this is basically when I look at this discourse, and I basically feel very ashamed and feel very shocked about what is going on in our temples nowadays, because they are not virtuous, they are not concentrated, and there are three other things. They don't have wisdom, they don't have the liberation, they don't have the knowledge of liberation, so therefore they can't teach. So therefore everything what they are doing are some rituals, and the Buddha has seen this at the very beginning when he was living, and he has very clearly mentioned that these are the things that you have got to do for your own benefit and for the benefit of others. If you have, then you can give it to the others. So this is the main difference between Mahayana and Theravada. Mahayana is trying to make all other beings liberated, and then you can liberate. So that equation applies to everybody, and then nobody therefore will be liberated. But so far as Buddha is concerned, he said, you first come out of the mud, you first come out of the garbage, and then you will be able to help somebody else. So long as you are in the mud, you can't help somebody else. So therefore, he says, for your own benefit, you become concentrated, and then you will know how to tell someone else how to become concentrated. So we have taken this topic, and in the last three talks, I think, if I'm not wrong, we have been discussing this quite a bit. So if I give you just the summary of what we have been discussing under concentration, we basically learn that by observing precepts, we will be avoiding transgressional defilements. And once you avoid transgressional defilements, the next thing that comes up is the obsessional defilements. The obsessional defilements, which we call Parahita will be those defilements that only you know, nobody else would know. So to come out of the obsessional defilements, Buddha has recommended us to train your mind. So because the obsessional defilements are the hindrances, which we all know, the 5 hindrances. So these 5 hindrances should be tamed. You will see these 5 hindrances only because you have an unrestrained mind. And you see your unrestrained mind because you have restrained physical activities, physical deeds, and the mental deeds. So I'm sorry, the verbal deeds. Since your physicality and verbal behavior is under control, then you see uncontrolled wild monkey, the crazy monkey. So they are basically, there are lots of things under unrestrained mind, but the Buddha has uh, basically divided them into 5 categories, which we know hindrances as Kama, Chanda, Vyapada, Tina, Middha, Uddhacha, Kukucha, Vichikicha. In other words, sensual desire, Vyapada is hatred, and then sloth and torpor, agitation and worry about the past, and skeptical doubts. So, in order to train them or in order to restrain them, what Buddha has mentioned is you will have to be observant of whatever the object that comes your way. So, whenever we practice mindfulness, if we are able to bring our attention to the primary object, then when the attention is with the primary object, then your mind is restrained. Then the question arises, when you are not with the primary object, whether the mind is not restrained. So again, mind can be restrained under the teaching of the Buddha, but under the teaching of some of the practice or the teaching before Buddha, then when the mind is not with the primary object, then there is no concentration, as we know, because samatha is always trying to be with the primary object. But here, what Buddha says is, when you have the observation of whatever the object that comes your way, then you will be avoiding the 5 hindrances. So he says, in the first absorption, first immersion, it is when a mendicant, quite secluded from sensual pleasures and quite secluded from unskillful qualities, enters and remains in the first absorption, which has applied and sustained thoughts with rapture and bliss born of seclusion. So, when you have applied and sustained thoughts, applied thought means you label whatever the object that is there. So, it may be your primary object, which is walking and sitting, or it may be any hindrances that comes to the primary object, or any disturbance that comes to the primary object. Maybe when you hear a sound, or when you have a vision while walking especially, or when you smell something, or when you have ache and pains, or when you have thoughts, even that can be considered as an object, and you can label them. So when you label them, then your attention is with what is there in that particular point in time. So I know most of the teachers are saying, when you label, you will have to always label the primary object, and you will have to be always with the primary object. So that is not 100% true so far as insight is concerned. Insight, what Buddha says is, keep the mindfulness to the fore. When you keep the mindfulness to the fore, your objects keeps changing. When your objects change, what you do is, accordingly you change your attention. So you will have choiceless awareness. Otherwise, what you will have is, when you have a disturbance, if you are asking for the primary object, then you don't have choiceless awareness. You are choosing your awareness. So that is deviating from your mindfulness. So we'll have to be very clear. Since we are walking on the path of the Buddha, your labeling, your applied thoughts will be what is prominent in the particular point in time. So not only just apply your thoughts to that, since the thoughts are applied to whatever the object that comes your way, you will be able to see more details of that. You will be able to see more shapes and manners, more sensation, more signs and signals of the object that you are seeing. So seeing that is taking details, collecting data of the object is called sustained thought. So you label it vitakka vichara, and you see the details of the object as it. So when you do that, you will be naturally away from the sensual pleasures. You will be naturally away from the unskillful qualities, which are the hindrances, which are obsessional defilements. So that seclusion gives you a profit, and that profit is called rapture and bliss. So we discussed this in detail in the last talk. And then when you move from there, you not only now you are completely away from the obsessional defilements from the first jhana itself. As soon as when you label and your attention is taken to the object, in those thought moments, you completely throw away, kick the hindrances. You will not have disturbances from the hindrances. So when you keep on continuing the practice of first absorption, which you may know or may not know, it is not necessary for the yogi to know that you are in the first absorption. No, only thing that you have got to do is you will have to keep the mindfulness to the fore. So when you keep the mindfulness to the fore, naturally you will start seeing the frictions in the first absorption. You got the first absorption because you saw the friction while practicing, the friction that you had when you are unable to bring the attention to the objects. Now, that was the friction that you had. So you learned an art to bring the attention to the object, which is labeling and getting details of the object. So because of that, you were able to keep the friction away, which is the disturbance from your sensual pleasures and the disturbances from the hindrances. So you continue that practice for some time. When you keep on practicing that, you start seeing the friction in the first absorption. So the friction in the first absorption is what you do. Anything that you do, anything that you are compelled to do will be a friction, right? So doing is always a friction. So therefore, when it comes to the climax or the maturity of the first absorption, you gradually start learning that labeling is a nuisance. Labeling is a trouble. Labeling is something that creates more friction. So what you do is you try and see whether you can observe without labeling, or whether you can just observe without observing anything, right? So therefore, if you are successful, just keep sitting. If you just keep walking, then the Blessed One says, it is even better. And he says, in the maturity of the first absorption, and when you transit in the second absorption, what happens is you calm down the applied and sustained thoughts. So when the applied and sustained thoughts are calming down, in other words, you feel that it is not necessary to label and get the details. And when that happens, usually your walking is happening naturally. Your breathing is shallow. And there are disturbances, but you don't care about them. So you are fairly settled. So in this settled state, there is no need to keep labeling again. There is no need to keep taking details because you are already settled. So then he says, when the applied and sustained thoughts are calming down, the bhikkhu achieves and remains in the second jhana, and there with internal tranquility and one-pointedness born of seclusion. Now you are completely secluded, not only from sensual pleasures, not only from hindrances, but also from labeling and collecting data. So when that happens, your internal tranquility and one-pointedness has arisen. That is what I mentioned. The walking is happening naturally, and breath is shallow. There are disturbances, but you are not affected. So in that situation, your mind, you think when you say one-pointedness, that mind has to be there on one thing very sharp without moving. No, in this case, what happens is you're tranquil and you can't stop the world. The world is running, the mad world is running as it is, but you are not getting disturbed. So that is the one-pointedness that the Buddha is teaching. So when with that tranquility, you have rapture and bliss, not now born of seclusion. Now it is born of concentration because your attention is completely internal, introvert, directed. So when you keep on practicing in this manner, in the climax, in the maturity of the second absorption, you will start seeing the dangers, you will start seeing the risk, you will start seeing the trouble in the second absorption. Since you realized the troubles in the sensual world, you came to the first absorption. When you realized the troubles in the first absorption, you gradually transmitted to the second absorption. These are natural happenings when you are mindful, not that you purposely do it. You are purposely doing that under samatha practice, under concentration practice. But here we are disciples of the Buddha. So we are practicing what Buddha has said. What Buddha has said is keep the mindfulness to the fore. So when you keep the mindfulness to the fore, we should know how these things are happening. The same things are happening, but under different scenario, under different circumstances, in a different way, using a slightly different technique. So this is what I'm trying to explain here. So in the climax or the maturity of the second absorption, the mind starts realizing the troublemakers in the second absorption. In the second absorption, you don't have even applied and sustained thoughts, let alone the sensual pleasures and the hindrances. They are not there, they have gone in the first one itself. You have now only rapture and the bliss, born of concentration. So in the maturity of the second absorption, yogi may gradually realize the rapture is more troublesome. So I'm not going to explain what rapture is because I have explained that in the previous talk. But if I just remind you what it is, rapture is the happiness that gets generated in the mind, but mind is creating physical manifestations of this happy mind. So the mind does not know to be happy without being manifested that from the physicality. So that is rapture. So we call it mental volitions. So mind is creating situations, mind is creating visions and images that the body is not actually having. One such examples will be ants scrolling on your cheeks or chin or on the face, something like that. And there are 5 of them. So if you want details, please go to the previous talks and listen to them. And then this nature that is created by the mind, that the yogi experiences while practicing, yogi after sometimes with the maturity of the second absorption gets used to it and doesn't entertain that too much. So that is because he realizes that that nature is more frictional compared to the bliss that he is experiencing. So therefore, in the third absorption, what happens is not that you seclude, it says having been detached from the rapture. You naturally gets detached from the rapture because mind now is learning a new skill to identify the germs in the system. So the germ that is identifying now in the practice, in the system, is the rapture compared to the bliss. So when you identify the germ, you try to keep distance from the germ. So you have all your precautions. Therefore, it says, having been detached from rapture, mind does that, and that naturally happens to the yogi. And that bhikkhu dwells in equanimity with mindfulness and clear comprehension, and experiences the bliss in the mind and body. He achieves and remains in the third jhana, equanimous and mindful of the bliss he abides in. So once he detaches from the rapture, the only thing that is left is the bliss, and he starts living in the bliss. When he starts living in the bliss, there is a new quality that will be developed in the mind. The quality that gets developed, new skill that gets developed in the mind, is the equanimity. How that develops is because it is detaching from rapture. So rapture is not something that you experience when you're in the sensual world. Rapture is not something that you experience when you're with the hindrances. Rapture is something that you have gained when you move away from this, from the faculties, from the joy that you get from the faculties. In other words, rapture is something that you have gained, yield from the practice. So therefore, something that you have earned from the practice is very precious. So when you lose that dividend that you have gained from your investment, it's something heartening, something disturbing. Therefore, detaching from the rapture may create unhappiness in the mind. But when it is naturally happening, whenever you detach from the rapture, you feel unhappy, you feel unsettled. You may feel some sort of mental disturbances. So, although you feel mental disturbance, now what comes into the play is your ability to keep the mindfulness to the fore. Since you have developed mindfulness to the fore in the first absorption and in the second absorption, or in other words, when your basic practice is based on keeping the mindfulness to the fore, although you feel unhappy with the loss of the rapture, you become aware of the unhappiness as well. So when you become aware of the unhappiness, you are now not only having mindfulness, Buddha says you have mindfulness and the clear comprehension. You have mindfulness and clear comprehension because you are losing something that you have generated from the practice itself. And when you lose something, you have some unpleasant mentality, you have some displeasure arising within you, and you become aware of it instead of crying about it. So when you become aware of it, because of your clear comprehension, you are developing this new quality, which we call equanimity. So therefore, although you lose what you gained, with this new quality that you are earning, you become equanimous and mindful of the bliss he abides in. Right? So something is lost, doesn't matter. I'm aware of it, and with that awareness, you learn another skill in your mind, and then with that skill, you become mindful of the bliss. Bliss means the unsettled. Sorry, I'm sorry, very sorry. The completely settled physical pleasure. You just abides in it. So in the third absorption, now you have only the bliss, and that bliss is supported by the equanimity, which counterattacked the sorrow, the suffering that was created by the loss of the rapture. So it matures for quite some time. So when you practice, you will be practicing walking, or you will be practicing sitting, and you may feel that you don't gain anything, but still you just keep walking. When you are sitting, you just keep sitting, and you don't feel any pain in the body. But at the same time, there is no much enjoyable things happening. When you have rapture, a lot of enjoyable things are manifested in the body, and you had a lot of things to see. But when all these things are faded away, you don't have anything to pay your attention to. And some may feel that there is no point meditating now as well because nothing is happening. But although nothing is happening in the practice, you are very settled so far as the physicality is concerned. So you just keep practicing. So therefore, this is a very crucial stage. Nothing tangible, nothing drastic, nothing observable is happening. But still, you don't give up your practice without expecting anything. You continue your practice. So it's sort of situation where practitioners always question whether my practice is correct or wrong. So with the maturity of the third absorption, then comes the fourth absorption. So this is what we have got to discuss today. So up to this time, what I have been doing is giving a summary of what we have been discussing in the past, and especially in the last week. And in the fourth absorption, the explanation given by the Blessed One, I'm reciting that in English, says, by dispelling both pleasant and unpleasant feelings, and by the prior disappearance of the sadness and gladness, that bhikkhu achieves and remains in the fourth jhana, a state of equanimity purified by absolute purity of mindfulness, without pleasant and painful feelings. So this is a very interesting explanation. Here, what the Buddha says is, by dispelling both pleasant and unpleasant feelings, because you are when you practice, when you observe the bliss, you had only the rapture is not there. You had the settled physical process, and you have been observing it with equanimity from the third absorption. But what happens is, when you keep on observing it for some time, and it at the beginning it will be peaceful, or after some time it may become unpleasant. Why it becomes unpleasant is, anything that will be pleasant will not last long. Anything unpleasant will not last long. As we know, the impermanence will start playing its part. So especially when you keep on observing, when you don't have anything, especially at the physical level, your mental level is getting more and more activated, because physical manifestations are at the rock bottom now. So initially, since you have come out of your physical volitions, it will be very pleasant, and your body will be, physical process will be very calming and very peaceful. So you will have a pleasant observation, you will have a pleasant feeling. When you keep on observing this pleasant feeling, you because of your observation, you will not enjoy the pleasantness, since you simply observe it. So if you enjoy the pleasantness, then you will be able to keep it for a long time, because you will be, without your knowledge, generating craving towards the pleasant feeling. But what we have practiced and what you have confirmed in the third absorption is you have not just mindfulness, you have created clear comprehension. And not only that, with the clear comprehension, you have introduced a new technique of being equanimous. So, because of these qualities in the mind, when you have a pleasant sensation, that pleasant sensation, pleasant feeling, you simply keep observing. In other words, you simply become aware of it. You will not get succumbed to it. You will not get you will not become a victim of it. But of course, practitioners, when they are practicing, they might initially become victims. And some people say, I don't feel anything, but my body simply falls down. My neck goes down and my body start gradually slithering down. So those things happen because your body is so much at peace and you enjoy that peaceful situation, and your mindfulness gets to the backstage. Your goes to the back seat, or sometimes maybe even to the boot, and the mindfulness is not active, and your concentration is active. And in that concentration, equanimity is not very visible. Equanimity has been overpowered by the pleasure in the concentration. So these are not mistakes of the practitioners. These are things that will naturally happening depending on what the practitioner has developed in the past. To what extent he has being with the keeping the mindfulness to the fore. Now, when these things happen, it's the duty of the teacher to see what's going on and gradually introduce the necessary energy faculty for them to become mindful of the current situation. So the teachers will say, that's all right, but just see what when you know your mind, or sorry, when you know your body or the head is falling down or gradually slithering down. So the practitioner will try to observe the things that happen before before the bending, either the head or the body. So after some time, the practitioner might be able to observe certain phenomena that takes place before this particular occurrence. So then the teachers will encourage them to be more prepared and see how it starts falling down. Either the head or the body is falling down. So with that, with those type of techniques, or some teachers may say, when you see the precursors to the lowering of the body or the bending of the head, you start labeling slightly again. So they will use the technique of labeling to introduce the mindfulness again, to take the mindfulness from the back seat, to take the mindfulness from the passenger seat to the driving seat again. So it's not that labeling is completely thrown away. So these are techniques that teachers will use when people naturally gets diverted or becomes victims of the pleasant feelings that they are experiencing. So after some time, they may be able to keep their body upright in a very balanced manner with continuous practice. And then with that, when you keep on observing such pleasant feelings in the upright body, since you are mindful, since you are not a victim of concentration, your mind goes even deeper into the mental process. So when the mind goes deeper into the mental process, it will uncover certain unpleasant feelings that you have not touched in the past. So in other words, when you become more and more aware of the pleasant feeling, you become used to it. You get used to it. When you get used to the pleasant feeling, and because of mindfulness, you are not a victim of the pleasant feelings. You are not a victim of the concentration. So you continuously maintaining your awareness. Once you continuously maintain your awareness, your attachment to the pleasant feelings gradually reduce. So the gradual reduction of the attachment to the pleasant feeling, mind will read as an unpleasant feeling, because the loss of pleasant feelings is naturally an unpleasant feeling, and loss of unpleasant feeling naturally a pleasant feeling. So therefore, when you are observing pleasant feeling over time, naturally unpleasant feeling will arise. So it will arise for two reasons. One, you are not getting attached to the pleasant feeling, and on the other hand, the mind is sharp. Mind is dwelling into the untapped areas of the mental process, and then in those untapped areas of the mental process, there are undiscovered unpleasantness, undiscovered suffering in your mental process. So because of these two reasons, when you will have unpleasant feelings. But again, what Buddha says is not that you have pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling. And I just explained how these pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings arise when you come from the third absorption. What Buddha says is when you come to the fourth absorption at the climax of the third jhana, you're dispelling both pleasant and unpleasant feeling. You neither become a victim of a pleasant feeling when you have pleasant feeling, not that you just fall down and you become a victim of it and you completely get bogged down in it, or you will not start crying and weeping when you have unpleasant feeling. Either way, you will be very close observe. When it is pleasant, you will be having a smile and keep observing the pleasant feeling. And then when it becomes unpleasant feeling, your smile will remain the same. Our attitude, our way of talking, our way of presentation will change depending on whether you have pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling. But when you gradually learn the art of dispelling both, what you gradually learn is becoming so sharp in mindfulness. In other words, getting more and more purification into the new quality that you have learned from the third absorption, which is the equanimity. So you were introduced to equanimity in the third absorption with the loss of rapture. Now, with the loss of the rapture, you had at least bliss. So you were able to dwell in it with the equanimity about the rapture. Now, in the fourth absorption, the bliss that you had in the third absorption is also getting gradually faded away because you are simply observing. And then when the bliss is also getting faded away, again, it is a reason for you to have a huge cry, for you to start weeping. But that does not happen because number one, because the mindfulness is to the fore. Number two, because you have a new skill that you have learned called equanimity. And these two factors combined together, you completely face the pleasant and unpleasant feeling. So it comes to a stage, you don't care whether you have a pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling. You simply keep observing. Therefore, it is as good as that you have it or you don't have it. In my terms, you don't give a damn. You simply keep observing, right? So, and that's one side of the fourth absorption. And then the other side of the fourth absorption, it says, and by the prior disappearance of sadness and gladness. This is very important, because the pleasant and unpleasant feeling, we are talking about the body, the loss of the bliss. But to face the dispelling of pleasant and unpleasant feelings, Buddha says, before that, before facing the pleasant and unpleasant feeling, you must have faced something else. In other words, before you do your A-levels, you must have passed your O-levels, without which you can't go. So, or else, before you attack the headquarters, you must have attacked the guards around, the first line, first front line. Then only you can go inside. So it's the same thing here. Before dispelling the pleasant and unpleasant feelings, you must have made up your mind. So that is the second thing what is mentioned here. It says, and by the prior disappearance of sadness and gladness. Sadness and gladness is something that happens in the mind. And that sadness and gladness is the one that was discussed in the third absorption. Rapture is something that is the rapture is the happiness, the freedom of the mind. I mean, the term freedom is not 100% correct. The rapture is the peace of the mind. So that peace of the mind, which the mind was enjoying by creating so many physical manifestations, which actually were not there, but the images of visions of certain physical experiences were created. So therefore, we call it, what do you call, I don't remember the Pali term. There's a Pali term for it. So all with those physical manifestations of the, the loss of the physical manifestations of the rapture, as I said earlier, will create a lot of sadness, because you have earned rapture, you have gained rapture from the practice. The very same thing that you have gained from investing so much of time, from sacrification of so much of sensual pleasures, is also now vanishing, has also vanished in the third absorption. So when it is vanished in the third absorption, it is as if something that a child that you have brought up is lost. So therefore, it's naturally a sadistic situation. But because of the continuing mindfulness and equanimity, that mental reaction to the disappearance of the rapture is taken care of. So therefore, prior to dispelling pleasant and unpleasant feelings, the disappearance of sadness and gladness must have taken place. So if mind should be ready to face the physical pleasant and unpleasant feeling. If the mind has not been prepared, if the mind has not been ready, in the fourth absorption, they won't be able to face pleasant and unpleasant feeling. So when you are practicing, and if you are talking high about pleasant feelings, and if you start crying about unpleasant feelings, that is simply because your mind is not ready. You are still looking for rapture. And these are not mistakes. This is how our defilements are manifested. So the teacher will know that he is still, his equanimity, his or her equanimity should still be developed more. In order to develop equanimity more, you don't have to do anything. You will have to sharpen your mindfulness to keep it to the fore. No matter what happens, you simply keep observing. So when your observation capability heightens and improves, then your mind is what is getting changed. Your mind is getting used to continuous observation instead of expectation, instead of interpretation, instead of projecting things that would happen in the future. So, therefore, prior to dispelling both pleasant and unpleasant feelings, the prior disappearance of sadness and gladness, in other words, preparation of the mind, must be there. So, that is what is happening in the third absorption. So, since it is there, you will be able to, since the mind is ready, and what happens to the body is now very easy to be handled, because here only now you start seeing mind matters most. Mano pubbangama dhamma. So this is how Buddha teaches those things to us, and we don't see that such a profound thing is there underneath. But when you see these things and very clearly see how Buddha has not confused anything anywhere, what he has said everywhere is getting very nicely hooked, very nicely linked. So therefore the mind is ready, and as a result, whatever happens to the body, the practitioner is able to observe. So then he says that bhikkhu achieves and remains in the fourth jhana. And the state of equanimity, purified by absolute purity of the mindfulness, without pleasant and painful feelings. So this is again very important. This last bit, it says without pleasant and painful feeling. So usually when you have dispelled your pleasant and unpleasant feelings, and when your sadness and gladness has disappeared, all what is left for you is the boredom. All what is left for you is the laziness. All what is left is the drowsiness, nausea. So this is what is happening. So when you are getting close when you are in the climax of the third absorption, you may feel very lazy. You don't feel practicing. You don't feel walking, and you feel very miserable. And that is because there is nothing to be happy, no pleasant situation, no gladness, and no unpleasant situation to fight with, no unpleasant situation or sadness to cry about. So when these things are not there, you don't feel that you are living. You don't feel that the life is there. All what you feel is misery all over. So when that happens, no one believes that it is a heightened state of the practice. And when this happens, only you will have to continue to practice. And I have met people, when they come close to this, for months and months, they have stopped their practice. And then once I said, balata kaseng gahando na, then only they come to the practice again and then start practicing. Because always we practice without our knowledge or otherwise, with some expectations from the practice. So when it comes to this situation, in the fourth absorption, what the Blessed One says is, without pleasant and unpleasant feelings, which means neither pleasant no unpleasant feelings. Adukkama sukha state is there, and you are not a victim of adukkama sukha as well. You are aware of the adukkama sukha as well. So when there is boredom, you accept the boredom. When the things are miserable, when you feel miserable in your mind, then you accept that. So when you keep on accepting it, this is giving you an opportunity to sharpen your equanimity, to sharpen the new skill that you have learned in the third absorption. In the third absorption, you start ABCD of equanimity with the loss of rapture. But when it comes to the fourth absorption, you lose even the feelings, pleasant and unpleasant feelings, which is the manifestations of the actual bodily sensations. It is not just images that have been created. It's the actual situation. So you become observant of that as well, and it becomes more advanced. It becomes more purified when you come to this stage of neither pleasant nor unpleasant situation. And even there, instead of stopping your practice, instead of changing the teacher, instead of changing the technique, you continue to practice, you continue your mindfulness. Of course, initially, with a long phase, but over time, you become more and more neutral and more happy. You start appreciating being aware of no matter what happens. So, with that, now your mindfulness has given you this wonderful tool called equanimity, and that is purified by mindfulness. You call it upekka sati parisuddhi, but there is some unfortunate thing. This upekka sati parisuddhi, as far as I see, it has been mistranslated in the books. What they say is mindfulness has been purified by equanimity. I don't see that is the right explanation when you see the practice. From the practice, because of especially in the third and fourth absorption, and there are many other reasons in the teaching, in this manner, you will be able to continuous practice of this situation will let you master the fourth absorption, and in this stage you have fairly tackled and attacked and challenged lot of clingings that you have had, lot of craving that you have had. So therefore it will start giving lot of experiences that you may not have experienced in the past. So in that way, you will, when you learn your concentration, you will be able to teach concentration to the others. You know what's happening when you keep the mindfulness to the fore. And otherwise, what happens in the current world is a lot of people teach mindfulness from the books. And by teaching mindfulness from the books, they say mindfulness is not working. And that's very sorry state of affairs. So we don't require university education for this. There is no need for us to know Pali. There is no need for us to know Tripitaka. We do have all these things. They are trying to gain authority for Dhamma by doing those things. But when someone is actually practicing, and he or she will be able to understand, but the real teaching is not in the books. Real teaching is keeping your attention to the body. So therefore, that is the skill, that is the authority, that is the power that the Blessed One has left with us. So may you all be able to have that power and gain the liberation that the Buddha has taught us. Blessings of the Triple Gem. All right. So, anything to discuss by anybody?
It's a pretty long sort of discourse. A lot to take in.
We are every time doing like that.
Quite comprehensive, yeah.
Good. Thank you. Did you understand anything?
I tried.
Yeah, no, that's good. Whatever you can understand, you understand. Forget about the others, keep practicing. Then over time, you will be able to understand. You can't learn all these things in one go. You will understand them more depending on the continuation of practice and advancement of your practice.
Yes, Bansi. Teruvan Saranai.
Teruvan Saranai. Any other question by anybody? Okay, so if there is nothing to discuss any further, we will be able to transfer merits from what we have done today. Can I kindly request Kusal to do that? And can you kindly do it in English, please?
Yes, Bhante. May all devas share this merit which we have this accumulated for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness and prosperity. May all other beings share this merit which we have this accumulated for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness and prosperity. May all the beings share this merit which we have this accumulated for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness and prosperity. May all beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, having shared this merit, long protect the dispensation. May all beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, having shared this merit, long protect the teaching. May all beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, having shared this merit, long protect me and others. If by deed, speech, or thought, heedlessly I have done any wrong, forgive, O Master, O Victor, greatly wise. If by deed, speech, or thought, heedlessly I have done any wrong, forgive, O Dhamma, to be seen here and now, timeless. If by deed, speech, or thought, heedlessly I have done any wrong, forgive, O Sangha, practiced well, the incomparable. Let this merit accrue to our departed relatives and may they be happy. Let this merit accrue to our departed relatives and may they be happy. Let this merit accrue to our departed relatives and may they be happy. By the grace of this merit that I have acquired, may I never follow the foolish, but only the wise up to the time I attain Nibbana. By the grace of this merit that I have acquired, may I never follow the foolish, but only the wise up to the time I attain Nibbana. By the grace of this merit that I have acquired, may I never follow the foolish, but only the wise up to the time I attain Nibbana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everybody for joining. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Everyone,
you,
sir.
Bhante.